And let's go through all the agencies involved in targeting then candidate Trump. State Department, CIA, FBI, DOJ, NSA, you can bet the Office of Director of National Intelligence, certainly the National Security Council, Susan Rice confirmed she was involved, and the Obama White House. It was all hands on deck targeting President Trump. So we have all these extraordinary revelations confirming Spygate. So what do the Democrats on the House do? They file a vote, they vote against Attorney General Barr, a contempt resolution out of the House Judiciary Committee. An extraordinary step. They're essentially saying Attorney General Barr should go to jail over his refusal to turn over millions of pages of documents potentially at the drop of a hat and just a few lines of text in the Mueller report. Text that he can't lawfully turn over absent legislation by Congress, because the grand jury protected material, the Attorney General doesn't have the discretion to turn it over, nor does the House have the ability to override federal law to look at material it doesn't have a right to under the law. Now, to be clear, I understand that Congress and the executive branch get into fights. And just because it's Democrats asking for the records, it doesn't mean that the request is not well-founded. But I do know enough about the political back and forth in these legislative requests or these oversight requests to know it takes time to work through them. So you have the report issued, and then to demand immediately that the report be released, including all the background material over it, and then put someone in a contempt situation within weeks of the initial request is an abuse of power. It's an outright abuse of power. And it's a part of a series of abuses of power that began with Spygate, as I point out, in 2016, maybe 2015. DOJ, FBI tasked to target then candidate Trump. Continued through the coup discussions at the top levels of the Department of Justice. Continued through the Mueller Special Counsel operation with all the abuses of that out-of-control investigation. Pre-dawn raids, guns drawn. Calls to CNN, it looks like, or somehow CNN is alerted to one of the raids, specifically on Roger Stone. Raids on the president's lawyers, charging people with crimes that hadn't been charged in many, many years here in Washington, D.C., namely the Foreign Agents Registration Act, basically an outrageous prosecutorial effort to try to destroy President Trump. And then on top of that, they issue a smear report that presumes the president is guilty, and then they say they decline to exonerate him. Abuse of power piled on top of abuse of power. And now the baton's been passed along to the Justice Department, to the Democrats on the Hill, who are now abusing the powers entrusted to them by the American people to distract from the fact that their party has been caught in illegal spying targeting President Trump. It began during the campaign, and as the New York Times confirms, it continued during the Trump presidency. Yes, the FBI was spying on President Trump. Not candidate Trump, but President Trump as well. Halper went to the White House. He supposedly wasn't given any instruction, but he wasn't there as an American citizen trying to help the president. He was there as an asset of the FBI. So this abuse of power by Jerry Nadler at the Department of Justice, the Judiciary Committee chairman, targeting the Attorney General, is rich. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Attorney General needs to be investigating some of the members of Congress who are seeking to hold him in contempt. Because if he's going to be doing an honest and thorough investigation, because he says he wants to investigate Spygate, I hope he actually does something substantial there. That's why they're angry at him. He blew up the Mueller report by exposing the basic outlines of it, that it was found no collusion and there was no evidence, legal or factually, of obstruction. So the left was furious that he got ahead of them on spinning that narrative. And even worse, he wants to criminally investigate the coup cabal against President Trump. And that would necessarily involve investigating members of Congress. You heard me right. It would mean investigating members of Congress because they were involved in the conspiracy to target President Trump and then candidate Trump. So this is not, talking about conflicts of interest. Some of these members should be recused from targeting, voting on contempt in the Attorney General Barr's debate. So I don't know if they're going to do a full-on contempt effort in the House. It was voted out of committee. But I'm just highlighting that this is not about about Attorney General Barr. This is about protecting themselves, the Democrats, from scrutiny. And what better way to hamper scrutiny into your criminal conduct or potential criminal conduct, let's be nice, than to suggest the Attorney General of the United States did something wrong, when in fact it's just your typical fight between the executive branch and the legislative branch on documents. That being said, the Justice Department has been a black hole in terms of document production to Congress for years, and it didn't begin with the Attorney General. Now, of course, when the Republicans were seeking Spygate documents, you had the Democrats opposing them, saying, oh, they're getting into things, they're trying to interfere with the Mueller investigation, they're trying to let information out that should be protected as classified. If I were the president, and you know, to the degree he can cooperate, he should cooperate with Congress. I mean, no use picking a fight when you don't need to pick a fight. But when the subpoenas are abusive and harassing, redundant, and impede unlawfully or unconstitutionally on the president's prerogatives and powers, he should fight back. You can see they're trying to abuse the powers entrusted to them by the American people by trying to use a law requiring tax information be given to certain members of Congress to try to get 10 years or so of the president's tax returns. I think it's 6 years. Well, it doesn't matter because 1 year is too many if you're doing it for illicit purposes. And thankfully, the Treasury Secretary said, no, you're not doing this legitimately. So now they're subpoenaing the president's tax records. So this abuse and harassment will continue. And obviously that's one of the fights I think the president should stand fast on. I don't know what the president's son's going to do with this ridiculous subpoena out of the Senate Intelligence Committee that is nominally run by Republicans, but is effectively run by Democrats. Whenever you hear bipartisanship, that usually means the left is running the show. So Senator Burr, the Republican and the chairman of the committee, likes to promote the fact that his committee investigation has been bipartisan. Well, that means he's turned over the investigation to his Democratic ranking member colleague, Senator Mark Warner, the Democrat from Virginia. So we have this massive Mueller report showing no collusion, recommending no criminal charges against anyone involved in the Trump campaign, and the Republican-controlled Senate follows up with a subpoena of the president's son. I mean, if you think the swamp is only populated by Democrats, you're sorely mistaken. Park rangers for the swamp are in both political parties.